Will the war in Afghanistan ever end? I'll ask the country's former intelligence chief, Amrullah Saleh. I'm Mehdi Hassan. Also on the show, the Democratic Republic of Congo's President Joseph Kabila remains in power past the constitution's two-term limit. Facing protests on the street, he's promised elections for the end of the year. So, will Congolese democracy reassert itself, or are we witnessing another dictator for life in the making? That's our debate. But first, 16 years into the US-led war in Afghanistan, ISIL has a foothold in the country, suicide attacks have become commonplace, and the Taliban are resurgent. So, is there an end in sight for the conflict? And will the US sending more troops there make things better or worse? This week's headliner, from Kabul, former Afghan Security Reform Minister and former Director of the country's intelligence services, Amrullah Saleh. Amrullah Saleh, thanks for joining me on UpFront. You were appointed by Afghan President Ashraf Ghani in March as State Minister for Security Reforms. But in early June, just 3 months later, you quit and announced your resignation on Facebook without any real explanation. Why?
Well, I did give the real explanation in person when I met our president and when I had a conversation with the National Security Advisor of Afghanistan. I didn't want to reveal the details because I thought it's not going to be helping.
So as of today, you cannot tell us why you departed from the Afghan government. It's a secret.
It's a secret because we are in a war situation. If it was a peaceful situation, I would have gone public with all the details, but I deem it necessary for the sake of my country and for the sake of the people of Afghanistan. If I do reveal the details, it will give me more political space, but it will also help the enemies of my country, and I will not go into details.
Let's take a step back. We're now in the 16th year of the US-led war in Afghanistan, a war that was partly about driving out the Taliban, but today their ability to strike at will seems stronger than ever. That's pretty embarrassing for someone like yourself, who has been leading the fight against the Taliban since 2001.
I don't think it's embarrassing for me as a person. It's embarrassing for the entire international community who have been on our side, waging the war on terror. We are fighting a terrorist group sponsored and assisted by a nuclear state sitting next to us. So it's a complicated situation. It's not as simple as you put it.
In the past, you've come out against negotiating with the Taliban. You've said it would give them legitimacy and space to militant extremism. If you're saying that a negotiated solution is not the solution, then what is the solution? It can't be a military solution because you've tried that for 16 years and failed miserably.
We have not tried a military solution in full scale in the last 16 years. That's a myth. United States had a very light footprint in Afghanistan from 2001 to 2008 and even 2009. They brought in what they call a military surge only in 2009, and they brought it with a flawed political strategy, which was to say that we are only here for 4 years, then withdraw regardless of the situation on the ground. It was a calendar-based military surge, but they also forgot another harsh reality, which is the existence of sanctuaries for leadership of the Taliban, for ideology of the Taliban, for financial networks of the Taliban in Karachi, in Islamabad, in Peshawar, in Quetta. So therefore, we have not failed. We have not recognized the problem as a global community, and that recognition and realization is a must.
Just sticking with fighting the Taliban and the US role, are you saying there is a military solution in your view in which the Taliban can be defeated, even though they couldn't be defeated when the US had 100,000 troops in Afghanistan? Why do you think President Trump and his generals will provide the political and military strategy that President Obama and his generals didn't?
What we are saying to the Americans is you are fighting the terrorists downstream. Upstream is is a nuclear state who are financing and providing facilities for our common enemy.
Which is also
so
a
what
US
we are telling
ally.
them is do it
It's
differently.
a major
go to the source
Hold on,
and
Pakistan,
go to the root cause of this.
Pakistan is a major non-NATO ally of the United States. President Trump is not about to declare war on Pakistan as much as you might want him to. So again, what is the strategy here? You're saying send more troops to Afghanistan and start a war with Pakistan. Only one of those two things will happen.
Well, we do not necessarily expect that based on our recommendation, Washington declares war on Pakistan, but at least we are sitting on massive amount of intelligence, both us and the Americans, which clearly shows Pakistan is supporting terrorism. What the United States does need is come out with more clarity and tell the Pakistanis, we know what you are doing, and we are a superpower, but we do not have super patience. Even that realization and open acknowledgement will change things.
A lot of counterinsurgency experts, terrorism experts, Afghanistan experts, they say that the presence of foreign forces, US forces, has acted as a recruiting sergeant for the Taliban, and that sending more US forces will only bolster the Taliban narrative, the Taliban recruitment process. In fact, your former boss, former Afghan President Hamid Karzai, said recently that increased US bombing and military action, quote, naturally causes resentment and legitimizes any resistance to it.
Well, you know, I have not been in agreement and in sync with certain ideas and some specific ideas and propositions of our former president since 2010, and I still hope that President Karzai will not look into it from a very narrow lens. He should look into the reality of Afghanistan, where most of the people, the majority of the Afghan people, oppose to Taliban and to terrorism. He should side with the majority and ask for the defeat of these bloodthirsty groups.
Is there any evidence that the majority of Afghan people want more US forces?
No, you should not twist the narrative. The majority of the Afghans want to be a responsible, dignified member of the international community.
It's a very simple question, no twisting. Do you have any evidence that the majority of Afghans want to see more American forces on the ground?
The majority of the Afghan people want a much deeper, much stronger partnership with the United States and with NATO in order to defeat terrorism. Sometimes that statements can be translated into asking for more military assistance, and sometimes that means more other types of strategic engagement. So therefore, we should look at it into a broader context.
Okay. Amrullah Saleh, a lot of experts say that the US it's not just the US that has acted as a quote-unquote recruiting sergeant for the Taliban, so have some of the actions of the Afghan government. You served for 6 years as the head of Afghanistan's National Intelligence Service, the National Directorate of Security, between 2004 and 2010. During that time, Human Rights Watch documented numerous incidents of torture, of detainees being beaten and subjected to electric shocks, being deprived of food and water by your forces. Not only are such practices immoral and illegal under Afghan law, but you could argue that they drive people into the arms of the Taliban, and that happened on your watch.
Let me be very specific to your question. First of all, I am a son of the soil, and I am not agreeing to these so-called experts who come for a few days and remain behind high walls, high blast walls, and then write a report. During my time as the head of the Afghan intelligence, I brought massive reform. We introduced new and humane interrogation methods. When I was head of the Afghan intelligence, the level of violence was low. It was a period of real pride for me to serve my country, to serve my government.
6 years after you took over, Human Rights Watch was saying that still the NDS were beating and subjecting to electric shock for days detainees, depriving them of food and water. That's Human Rights Watch. Are they lying? Are they making this up?
A lot of times, Mr. Hassan, you have to look at the work of these NGOs as a way of becoming apologists for reconciliation and resettlement. I do not necessarily endorse what they say or echo their concerns. Of course, we are not perfect. No country is perfect. Mistakes do happen. But the scope of the problem is not what they are claiming to be.
Amrullah Saleh, thanks for joining me on UpFront.
Thank you.
Anti-Semitism is racism. No ifs, no buts. It's hostility to or prejudice against Jews, not for what they believe, but for who they are. Sadly, anti-Semitism is on the rise on both sides of the Atlantic. In the US, Donald Trump's election victory was followed by a wave of neo-Nazi graffiti and vandalism, while across Europe, parts of the pro-Palestinian left has been accused of turning a blind eye to anti-Semitic hate. Now, there are plenty of people today who have suggested that anti-Zionism, the opposition to a Jewish majority state in Palestine, is a form of anti-Semitism, prejudice against all Jews. But here's the thing. While some anti-Zionists do cross the line into anti-Semitism, most anti-Zionists, including Jewish anti-Zionists, make clear their criticism is of Israel, not of Jews. They try and separate Jews, who are not a monolith, from Israel's misdeeds. Yet Israel's own prime minister often does the opposite. After the attack on the Jewish supermarket in Paris in 2015, Benjamin Netanyahu suggested French Jews know deep in their hearts that they have only one country, the State of Israel, that Israel is their true home. He did it again after the attack on a Danish synagogue the following month. The thing is, for most Danish Jews and for most French Jews, Denmark and France are their true homes. It's fueling anti-Semitism. It's racist to say they're not, to suggest they have some sort of greater or higher loyalty to a foreign state. Denmark's chief rabbi said he was disappointed by Netanyahu's remarks. But Bibi isn't the first Israeli leader to conflate his nation-state with all Jews everywhere. In 2006, Ehud Olmert claimed his country's assault on Lebanon was a war fought by all the Jews. In 2004, Ariel Sharon was accused by French Jews of pouring oil on the fire of anti-Semitism by insisting they must move to Israel. Look, anti-Semitism is very real and needs to be condemned. Let's denounce those who blame all Jews for the actions of Israel. Let's push back against those who conflate Jews with Israel, or Judaism, the religion, the ethnicity, with Zionism, the political ideology. But when it comes to who's doing that conflating, maybe let's not forget to include as well some of the irresponsible and yet cynical leaders of the State of Israel. The Democratic Republic of Congo was supposed to welcome a new president last year, but with elections delayed, President Joseph Kabila remains in office past the two-term limit enshrined in the constitution. His government is promising a new vote by the end of the year, but many remain skeptical Kabila will hand over power in time. Joining me to debate this are Zihindula Mulegwa, a former spokesman and close ally of President Kabila, and an opposition politician who wants to replace Kabila, Martin Fayulu. He's been imprisoned and physically attacked for protesting against the government. Thank you both for joining me in the arena. Zihindula Mulegwa, President Kabila was supposed to step down by December 2016, I believe. The constitution clearly stipulates a two-term limit. The government said, we can't hold elections, there are logistical problems. Some say he's trying to stay in office indefinite. He's trying to hold on to power forever.
If there is anything Kabila does not want to do, is to stay in power forever. There were problems, there were logistical problems which had to do with voter registration, and it would have been irresponsible for the president to leave power without this issue being resolved. And now we are involved in voter registration right now, and we expect to have elections at the end of this year.
You say you expect to have elections by the end of the year, and yet some party figures from the governing party are suggesting there should be a referendum to extend the term limit. Others are saying that new elections might be too expensive. So you can understand why people are skeptical about the idea of elections happening this year.
You know, part of President Kabila's vision is the fact that President Kabila understands that as long as we don't have elections in the country, it would be very dangerous for a country which has no elections. The first time we ever had elections in the country, they were brought by President Kabila. This is something that he brought. He brought an inclusive political system in the Congo, and it's not time to change it now. President Kabila wants us to go ahead with the elections.
Martin Fayulu, President Kabila is the one who brought in elections. The one thing he does not want to do is stay in office, says Zihindula Mulegwa. What do you say to him?
Yes, Mr. Kabila wants to stay definitely in the office. agree, I'm not agreeing with Mr. Mulegwa that Kabila was the first one to organize elections in the Congo. Mobutu organized the election. It's the same as Kabila is doing. The election is only the way for Mr. Kabila to stay in power. Mr. Kabila knew clearly that he has to go by the end of last year. But what he did, he tried to maneuver not to have election. Mr. Kabila continued to do all strategies for him to stay in power. And I'm not sure that by the end of this year, we'll have that transparent and credible election. Mr. Kabila was afraid because the people of Congo wanted him to go. He had to go. We went to the dialogue, and the dialogue stated clearly that Mr. Kabila has terminated his term on December 19, 2016.
And on that note, Martin Fayulu says the people want Kabila gone. The polling suggests that to be the case. A recent poll found 7 in 10 of the Congolese people said President Kabila should have resigned at the end of his two-term limit. 7 in 10 of them blame the current impasse on Kabila's ruling coalition.
First of all,
the people aren't with you.
The people of the Democratic Republic of Congo are with us. The
people, what the poll says.
Yeah, well, it depends on who did the poll, because we also have our own polling. We have our own polling. Now, let me go back to what the law says. Article 70 of the Democratic Republic of Congo Constitution stipulates clearly that a president stays in power until a new president is elected. President Kabila is there because the Constitution of the Democratic Republic of Congo says that he can stay in power until a new president is elected.
Well, let's put that point to Martin Fayulu. The court backed the president, didn't he? The Constitutional Court backed the president staying in office, didn't it?
The Constitutional Court said that they repeated exactly what the Constitution said, that he has to stay until the new elect president comes in power. But what does it mean? That means that you have to have election. The election, the Constitution said that the term is 5 years. That means after 5 years, you should organize the election. If you don't organize the election, tell me what to do. It's clearly that Mr. Kabila didn't want to organize the election because he had the Constitutional Court with him, and the people of Congo continue to say that he has to leave power.
Zihindula Mulegwa, if you did everything by the book, if you're following the law and the Constitution, why is it that when people turned out to protest these delayed elections, Congolese security forces ended up killing more than 40 people, arresting hundreds of others, earning criticisms from human rights groups across the world, including the United Nations? Why?
The Constitution of the Democratic Republic of Congo stipulates that we can have peaceful demonstration. The Constitution of the Democratic Republic of Congo does not call for anarchy, which is different. This is what Mr. Fayulu and other many people in the opposition have been calling for.
So anyone who protests against the government is an anarchist?
No. If you protest against the government, it's a right given by the Constitution. Protesting against the government is given by the Constitution.
So when the United Nations highlights human rights abuses on the ground in Congo, you reject
Let me give you an example.
I'm just saying, the United Nations, Human Rights Watch, they have criticized your government.
I will give you an example. I'm a lawyer in the Democratic Republic of Congo. In September of 2016, when they began these demonstrations, they went to my bar association to go after people. They were killing people. So what is the government supposed to do? The government is supposed to step in and bring back in law and order.
Let's put that point. Martin Fayulu, Zihindula Mulegwa says these were not peaceful protesters.
No, it's not true. I don't know if he really knows what is going on in this country. On September 19th, I received a bullet who were demonstrating peacefully. Who shoot me? Who shoot 8 other people who were with me, and one of
You were assaulted yourself, Martin Fayulu?
With a bullet.
I was shooted in a bullet here, straight away.
If you are going to be shot in the head, I think obviously he would not be operating the way the minister is operating. Again, this is what
You're saying he's making it up, an assault by the government?
Yes, I know that the Honorable is making it up. He was not shot in the head, because if he was shot in the head, obviously, if you get shot in the head, there'll be consequences for being shot in the head. Okay, so I would actually challenge the Honorable to show you the scar of where he was shot in the head.
Sorry. Yeah, please, I will show you some photograph. I'll show you some photograph. I don't know, that means you don't know what is going on in Congo. I was shot in head. I was in hospital for 2 weeks here in Congo. I went in Europe, in Paris, for medical treatment. I was, my eyes, blocked for 2 days. What you are telling me? And I had people, behind me, around me, who were shot and dead. You don't know exactly what happened on September 19, my friend.
Why is it that the opposition is so divided then when faced with President Kabila? There's been infighting amongst opposition leaders. Some opposition members have switched to Kabila's camp. Some might say that's why the president is still running rings around the opposition in Congo.
You're correct. This is a good question. Why the opposition is, quote unquote, divided? What Kabila has put in place as a system is to send people in the opposition and then to corrupt them, to buy them. This is Kabila system. What Mobutu was doing, Kabila has done exactly the same. Exactly the same.
Okay, Martin Fayulu, let me bring back in Zihindula Mulegwa. Assuming Kabila does step down at some stage, as you say he will, how will his 16-year presidency be remembered? Because Martin Fayulu is listing some of the things that have gone wrong on his watch. Congo continues to face many of the same recurring problems: poverty, inequality, armed conflict, lack of basic civil liberties and press freedoms. It isn't exactly a legacy to be proud of.
Now, when Kabila steps down, here's what people are going to remember. People will remember that Kabila was the only person who was able to reconcile Congolese people, and people will remember that Kabila was the man who began the reconstruction of this country. But I need to go back to Honorable Fayulu and ask him a quick question, because Honorable Fayulu says that President Kabila, when he describes him as a corrupt man. But can I ask Honorable Fayulu to take a commitment today, because he is the opposition and he wants to do the contrary of what Mr. Kabila does. But today, Mr. Fayulu is pursued by the government for the lack of paying his taxes in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's part of civic education as a person. His hotel in the Democratic Republic of Congo is closed down today because he will not pay his taxes. Is that corrupt or not?
No, but this guy is joking. My friend, please come and see. I work for ExxonMobil. I have high level of, ethics. I pay my tax. I went to the court and I showed to the court the all proof of payment. They closed my hotel because of the political situation. They didn't close the hotel because I didn't pay tax. I showed the evidence. Please, if you can come, and I will show you the all evidence. But you are talking nonsense, my friend.
Isn't it a little ironic for you to accuse Martin Fayulu of not paying taxes, corruption, etc., when you worked for a president, Kabila, who, according to a Bloomberg News investigation last year, quote, built a network of businesses that reaches into every corner of Congo's economy and has brought hundreds of millions of dollars to the family. His sister's name turned up in the Panama Papers, which is all about offshoring wealth.
Look, I don't know anything about Kabila's business. I don't know anything about
Bloomberg News do, and they say he's making hundreds of millions of dollars.
And I read the report from Bloomberg News, and I spoke to Tom Wilson, the reporter from Bloomberg News. I mean, this stuff is hearsay. Most of this stuff is innuendos. There is no proof of this stuff. And the only reason...
His sister's name popped up in the Panama Papers.
Very good. And the only reason why that can be done in the Democratic Republic of Congo, because Kabila has brought in Congo a transparent system. Okay. You understand? Where people can report about things.
So transparent that his sister allegedly offshores her wealth.
No,
but these are rumors and innuendos. And I cannot speak about Kabila's family directly, but I could talk about Kabila himself as president of the Democratic Republic of Congo and the kind of system he's brought to the country.
Let me ask you this before we run out of time. One last question to both of you. Will there definitely be presidential elections in 2017?
Yes, we will have elections in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the opposition is... before the end of the year. The opposition
November?
is asleep.
October?
Sometime before the end of the year.
Which month?
I don't know, but that will be decided at the end of July.
You guarantee that?
I guarantee that we will have elections.
Martin Fayulu, if there are not elections, what will the opposition do? What will the opposition do if there are not elections?
The opposition will send Mr. Kabila out. Will use the Article 74 of our constitution, 64. Like we want to do it last year. And Mr. Kabila has to go. He's a dictator. He wants to stay in power. He has put in place the Electoral Commission. which worked for him, and he continued because he wants his system to continue in this country. But we are telling him that he has to go.
Well, time will tell which of you gentlemen are correct. Thank you both for joining me in the arena. We'll have to leave it there. That's our show. Up Front will be back next week.